So for me, when I'm looking at this bracket, what would stress me out the most would be Viet Pham. Comes in at the first place seed at the World Championships, really can't ask for more. Maybe thinking, I might get an easy matchup. Someone squeaked in at 8th. Who could it be? It's Michael Hamilton, and it's the Iyslander mirror. Probably one of the most technical matches possible in Flesh and Blood right now. And you are facing the person that created the deck, the Iyslander player. It's going to be a tough match for Viet to start off with.
And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the hardships that Viet's gone through this weekend, not just the actual playing of this tournament. As you look at his player card here, he's from Germany, Viet Pham. Unfortunately, he had a little bit of a hiccup before the tournament here. And I think I'm underselling this just a little bit. His car got broken into. All of his stuff got stolen before this tournament. He had no clothes, no deck, no cards, nothing. And he almost didn't play the event, is what I heard. And thankfully for him, he played the event. He's in the number 1 seed here in the Worlds. And you know what? This prize pool here, this top 8, might be able to place a few cards and a few items of clothing.
Absolutely. You know what's really cool about some of these player cards? You see that 90-day XP rank. Like, we know that ranked ELO is sort of the way we determine who are the best competitive players in Flesh and Blood. But if you look at the 90-day XP, you'll see this consistent across a lot of these players. They play a lot of Flesh and Blood. They play a lot of armories, and they're well practiced. It just shows that in Flesh and Blood, you're rewarded for putting in the work and putting in the effort.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list that Viet Pham's going to play here. Does anything really stand out to you, or is this just kind of what we've come to expect from this deck?
Well, this does look almost card for card to be Michael Hamilton's list from the U.S. Nationals. I actually think it
actually is.
It actually, I'm pretty sure it's exact that I'm looking at it. The things that stick out are the yellows, Fendel's Fighting Spirit, and the 1 blue Scour, and of course these 2 energy potions. This is probably card for card Hamilton's deck from U.S. Nationals previously, which is funny because I'm pretty sure Michael Hamilton is also playing that same deck. So we're going to get pretty close to a true mirror here to start off.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. We'll take a look at his deck list. But before we do that, how about we hear from Viet Pham himself?
Hey, we're here with Viet Pham, our number 1 seed here in the top 8 of the World Championships. How does that feel?
It feels pretty good after what happened before the tournament.
What was that?
Well, we got robbed, so I lost all my cards, everything, all the clothes. I had only the clothes I had on me when I came in San Jose. So.
Well, I mean, you've recovered quite nicely for at least the Flesh and Blood part, so hopefully we get a 100K check at the end of this to help replace all of that. Now, you're playing Iyslander. You're going to be playing a mirror in the first round against an opponent that squeaked in at 8th, but it's another Michael Hamilton. Tell me how that feels, and what do you think that's going to happen in that match?
It feels hard because he's actually the person who I took the deck from. So I initially made some changes, but since my stuff was gone, I asked some friends to borrow it to me, and so I just took the list that he won nationals with. So I have a lot of respect for him, and I'm very excited to play him tomorrow.
Yeah, I know you said you had a couple people that you wanted to shout out to make sure that they got their names out there, because without them, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So thank you a lot, Ian Zhang, Yukili Berina, Manhim, and for everybody who supported me here, especially my girlfriend. And without you, I couldn't even play this today. So thank you very much.
One last question. If you were to get through this top 8 tomorrow and become the world champion, what would it mean to you?
It would mean party, because I would spend some of the money on all the friends that helped me and supported me. So it would mean actually a lot to me.
All right, I guess one more question then. Am I invited if you win?
Of course.
Absolutely. Good luck tomorrow. Hope you win, since I'm going to be invited.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great to hear all that from you, Pham. Still being positive after that hellish start to the weekend. We were handed a few stats here about him as well. He did make German Nats top 8 in 2022. One of the highest ranked players in the world. Also, this is a cool one I like here. He opened a Blood of Drakai at the Madrid Uprising World Premiere, so he got one of those fables, one of the first people in the world to get his hands on that. But speaking about world champions, he's got a pretty good player in his way.
Speaking about resumes, Michael Hamilton, U.S. 2022 national champion, also champion of the Calling Indianapolis, the Calling Orlando, world number 1 constructed ELO, world number 3 constructed ELO. That's consistency, Shannon.
Yeah, number 1 in the world, constructed number 3 in the world in limited. That's unreal, almost unheard of to be that good at both aspects of the game. So you can see why he did make it here into this top 8 and a very deserving player here in this top 8.
That competitive record, let's look at that. 49-9.
Is that good?
That's pretty good, Tannen. It feels like when you get a game off Michael Hamilton, you're getting away with something. Truly one of the best players in the world. I've had the pleasure of playing against him, and genuinely feels different than any other opponent I've played against. His mastery of the micro and macro gameplay of Flesh and Blood is so dynamic and so far ahead of the curve. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to watch him.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take a look at that deck list and what we're going to be watching. And yeah, it looks very, very similar to the one we just saw.
So what's really interesting here is in Viet Pham's deck, you saw the first iteration of that Iyslander deck. This is actually more version 2. Michael Hamilton has made some adjustments, has cut that yellow Fjendel's Fighting Spirit, has cut the blue Scour, and now has 2 yellow Aether Ice Fiends, which is actually pretty significant in the mirror because it's an impactful card that must be blocked. Usually these Iyslander lists are running Arcane Barrier 4, and the attack actions are going to be what you need to look out for. They're very important. But we're seeing version 1 and now version 2 of the deck. I'm really interested to see kind of how this one plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be big on the. We take a look at the equipment. The Alluvian Constello is going to be absolutely huge and impactful in this matchup.
Absolutely, like that's the name of the game is who can get the Alluvian Constellos triggers, who gets the most value. Because the way Alluvian Constellos works is the first time you block an arcane damage each turn, you put a counter on it, and you can take off 2 counters and basically swing your moon for free. So what that means is when you deal when you're going to try to deal 1 arcane damage to the opponent, they're actually getting 1.5 damage of value back because that wand swings for 3. So you're actually trading down every single time a single instance of Arcane is blocked. So you're not going to see these players throwing out small instances of Arcane, like 1 or 2 or something like that. When they're pushing Arcane, they're going to be sure that some of that can get through.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We've talked about this enough. Let's hear it straight from Michael Hamilton's mouth.
Here with another top 8 competitor, Michael Hamilton, squeaking in at 8th place. It looked a little dire there for a second, but she ended up making it in. How's it feeling?
It feels amazing. I was really worried.
We were worried in the booth the whole day. We were like, oh, he's going to make it. Then, not. Now, you're one of the 4 Americans that made it here into the top 8. What would it mean to be able to bring it home for USA to be a world champion?
It would just be amazing. Like, I don't really know how to put it into words. I stepped away from my job about a month ago to really focus on preparing for this. And
it paid off.
Yeah, it did for sure. And it kind of just top 8 is very validating for that. But like winning would be like the cherry on top of a very wonderful Flesh and Blood year.
Yeah, you've had a great year. Tons of top 8s, lots of trophies as well. One more maybe waiting for that room. Now you've got an Iyslander mirror here in the top 8. And you're going up against the #1 seed. You want to tell me a little bit about that matchup?
So
you don't have to give away all your secrets.
It's a matchup I've played a lot. It's always very challenging, and there's a lot of very difficult small inches decisions. So my opponent's very good, obviously, first seeded Worlds.
Yeah.
And he also gets choice of play draw, so I think, or first or second. So I think that's a pretty reasonable advantage. So I'm definitely nervous. I'm going to get some extra reps in tonight, get some good rest, and hope for the best tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. You're going to go straight to bed, or are you going to be one of those people you're going to prepare all the decks and get in some extra games tonight?
Just probably a game or 2 of the mirror before bed. Just freshen up on it.
Maybe a good dinner?
Nice dinner.
Yeah, maybe a bigger, nice dinner tomorrow.
That would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck, Michael Hamilton. Hopefully you take it home tomorrow.
All right, so that's the match we're going to have. We're going to have between Viet Pham and Michael Hamilton here. We're going to have an Iyslander mirror, and I cannot wait to see how this plays out. We're going to be going down to the feature match area. I see they're sitting down. They're getting ready. God, you can feel the energy. Let's go ahead and head up to that match. As you see here, it's going to be this Iyslander mirror, Michael Hamilton versus Viet Pham. Oh, these pictures are great. Look at this.
Yeah, so this matchup is very technical. It can go quick and it can go long. I do expect it to go long against 2 players like Viet Pham and Michael Hamilton. It's the thing about the Iyslander mirror is a lot of people look at a key card like Frost Hex and expect these players to combo each other, but that is most likely not going to be the case because they're on this quote-unquote Iyslander list, which means they have both attack actions in the form of Wounded Bull, Fjendal's Fighting Spirit, etc., as well as a spell package that you would expect from a wizard. What these players are going to be trying to do turn to turn is play out a big attack action like Wounded Bull for 8, then go to the opponent's turn and deal arcane damage to them when they usually will only have 2 cards in hand. It'll almost guarantee a leak of arcane, and ask the question to the other Iyslander player, do you want to try to prevent this damage, or do you want to keep an arsenal? Because if you're going to keep an arsenal, you're going to take damage. The economy of this arsenal and how it's managed is incredibly important in this Iyslander mirror, and we're gonna be calling a lot of attention to this Illuvian Constellus, because that is really where the skill, the skill gap is.
Yeah, we're absolutely ready to roll here today in this top 8. We're going to bring you every single match in this top 8. And as you see the players reveal their equipment, seems pretty same on both sides. Illuvian Constellus is going to be pretty big, pretty important. Energy Potions, another thing that could come up here and be pretty important in these matchups. One of the easiest way to pay through some of the effects that your opponent can have to tax on you here to keep your discards from happening.
Absolutely. Actually, all amulets and potions are going to be pretty crazy. The permanents on the battlefield really make this matchup feel swingy for as much as it can be. Like I said, it's pretty technical, it's pretty consistent, but if your opponent is landing Amulet of Ices on you or this Insidious Chill, it's really annoying as the opposing Iyslander player. I want to talk about this armor because it is symmetrical, but it is Arcane Barrier 4 like we talked about. So that's really important because most of the arcane attacks do not go above that threshold of Arcane Barrier 4. So you would wonder, how are they going to leak damage at all? Well, it's because you only have so many cards in hand, and you're going to be forced to block things like Wounded Bull, which comes in for 8, right? So say Viet Pham blocks with 2 cards here, right? He would still likely take 2 damage, would only have 2 cards in hand. Assuming both of those cards are blues, only block 6 arcane max. But if you play something like an Emeritus Scolding, Michael Hamilton plays an Emeritus Scolding out of Arsenal and Waning Moons, that's 7 damage. So what I'm trying to get at is Viet Pham in these situations literally will not have the card economy to utilize that armor to block out all that arcane damage.
There was so much math there. I had my abacus out. I was trying to keep up. Hopefully everybody at home did as well. And yeah, Michael was telling me a little bit before this about what's important in the mirror, and he talked about how physical attacks are actually just broken in the mirror because of that exact thing you were just talking about, because they're just so good on rate of resources versus your opponent's resources and working out. And hopefully at home, everybody will be able to see this kind of play out here. I did want to ask, how important is it that Viet Pham just starts out with an Insidious Chill? Is that scary for Michael?
It's pretty annoying. It's pretty annoying, Dan, and that can be a really swingy thing on the battlefield, especially if Viet's able to land a second one, because that means anytime Viet fuses a card, it'll rip Michael Hamilton's entire hand. Speaking of another annoying card, Frost Hex. So Frost Hex in the combo, usually not the way that these Iyslander mirrors end. It might technically end from Frostbite damage, but they're not purely trying to combo each other. That being said, when your opponent runs out early Frost Hexes, they're just going to get a incremental advantage on damage often at your end phase. One thing I really got to point out, though, is that one Frost Hex is usually actually kind of bad. And the reason for that is that it deals 1 arcane damage to Michael Hamilton, right? At the end of his turn. Say Michael Hamilton has 1 resource floating, which they often do as the Iyslander. He can use his Illuvian Constellus to block that and will get a counter on it, thus netting 1.5 damage of value that could be invested into the moon. So Michael Hamilton can actually farm Illuvian Constellus counters off of that initial Frost Hex. Once you get to 2 and 3, not as efficient. You're probably going to be taking damage, but really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's exact situation is possibly coming up here. We see 1 Frostbite with that Frost Hex, and we've got the resource here. And yeah, just like you said, there it is. The first counter to Illuvian Constellus. That advantage goes to Michael Hamilton, and he's going to go ahead and arsenal up and pass back over to Viet Pham. Viet Pham, good start here, though. He's got the essential. He's got that first Frost Hex, and I think Frost Hex is actually coming to a point of contention with these decks a lot. Some people were talking about possibly taking the card out.
That's the question, right? Because this is a bad scenario for Viet Pham. I'm not going to lie. If Michael's able to farm Illuvian counters on it, he will run away with this game pretty quickly. But you have to ask the question, because Frost Hex does do significant damage. It opens up an option for you to combo the opponent if you get multiple out. So do you play the first Frost Hex, or do you pitch it? And I think that often you are going to play it, but you just cannot run yourself into scenarios where you're giving 1 Frostbite and Michael Hamilton is just taking up his Illuvian into infinity.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Viet Pham did go down to 30 from that attack And now he's going to be coming back with one of the big attacks of his own. Not as big as a Wounded Bull, but this is a Fyendal's fighting spirit, but this does give him an extra life point here.
Yeah, so Fyendal's Fighting Spirit actually probably a little bit better than Wounded Bull because it has that dual modality of being able to effectively block for 3. I know it says 2 in the defensive portion, but because of the text on the card, you often will gain a life from it, and therefore it does block for 3. So for a 3 for 7 that blocks for 3 and has sort of these options, to work with, it's pretty good because you can gain that life when you're attacking as well, which is significant.
So it looks like we're going to have a Brain Freeze from Arsenal here. It's going to have an Ice Fusion. Let's go ahead and take a look at Viet Pham's hand.
Yeah, I believe, was that a Sink Below that was revealed?
It looked like a Sink Below to me.
So you got to look at the text of Brain Freeze. Although it can snag a 0-cost card, it says put an action card with 0. So that's why he wasn't able to get the Sink Below. If Michael had been able to hit a 0-cost card that Viet Pham was, that would be devastating because it would deny Viet an Arsenal. Anytime either one of these Iyslander players does not have an Arsenal, it's complete shields down and you can get away with anything. We're going to see probably the most significant damage happen during those windows. I'm also particularly interested to see that Viet Pham has the Sink Belows in. There's a question of whether or not you run them, despite them. They get you value on the big attacks, right? But do they dilute your deck to an extent that they will hurt your sort of spell and arcane damage?
So I've got a big question here. We know that Viet Pham just put that Sink Below into his arsenal. Michael knows that as well now. Are you incentivized not to physically attack if you can avoid it here for the next few turns to kind of lock that arsenal?
That's a really good question, Tannen, and it would be terrible if Michael Hamilton did do that. But like he told you in the interview, the attack actions are the most significant attack you can be doing. It strips cards out of the opponent's hand, and it's just way above rate for arcane. But Viet Pham being an Iyslander player without an arsenal, yeah, I'm interested to see how Michael Hamilton adapts because that's a significant thing you point out.
Yeah, speaking of significant attacks here, we've got an Aether Ice Vein on the stack here, and it's going to be fused as well. You can see the pressure already on Michael Hamilton here. This is kind of his normal way of looking when he plays games, but head in hand because this is a big effect. We've got 2 discards coming here because we do have an Ice Fusion. So it's getting some cards one way or the other. Michael
Hamilton only has access to Arcane Barrier 4, so certainly going to have to deal with this discard trigger. At the same time, there is an Amulet of Ice developed by Viet Pham, so Viet feels like he can take a significant card out of Michael Hamilton's hands after both of those initial discard triggers have resolved. He can additionally pop the Amulet of Ice to completely strip Michael's hand. I doubt he'll do it, though, because Michael has the Arsenal card. If Michael didn't, and he could potentially deny Michael the Arsenal, I wouldn't be surprised to see that Amulet of Ice used for that use case.
Yeah, it might be saving that Amulet of Ice for a little bit further down so he can maybe get like multiple cards every turn, as the game goes on, some more big impactful turns there. So Michael's still thinking about how he wants to navigate this. He's got a resource floating here still. So it looks like going to Cold Snap here from Arsenal. This is going to give a Frostbite over to Viet Pham. Also drawing a card for Michael here as well. Well-timed here. It's going to give him all the information that he could possibly have before he makes that choice on what he's going to discard here.
Yeah, Cold Snap just is a very sort of efficient thing that Iyslander can be doing. Pays the 1, 2 resources floating potentially when you pitch a blue, and you sink that right into Moon.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have a Waning Moon. Look, we always talk about this. It's your turn. It's my turn. It's our turn. It's going to be complicated at some point to remember exactly whose turn it is during these because these players, as soon as someone puts something on the stack, about 7 other actions are going to happen here. So in response to this Cold Snap, now we've got a Waning Moon activation from Viet Pham.
Yeah, if you're ever confused about whose turn it is, just look at what player has the red card on their combat chain, and it's likely their turn. Because those red cards are usually played during the main phase, unless a card like Stormstriders is being activated.
Which generally is going to be later in the game, right? That's kind of a thing that Stormstrider's super, super powerful. Don't get me wrong, but that's kind of like their big flourish, their big finish.
Absolutely, Tannen. If you pop Stormstriders before what seems to be almost the last turn of the game, maybe you could put your opponent at 1 or 2, a critical life minimum that they won't be able to block with their Arcane Barrier. But if you pop those Stormstriders early, I think you almost guaranteed lose the game. You lose complete agency to sort of respond to your opponent and close it out. Like, we talk about this all weekend where Iyslander's fundamentally powerful for taking 2 turns in a row. I mean, Stormstriders allows you to do that with the red card and is the card you use to sort of end the game.
All right, let's try to clean this up a little bit. Looks like Cold Snap is resolved, the Waning Moon is resolved, the Frostbite is resolved, and now we're back to the Aether Ice Vein that happened about 3 minutes ago.
Absolutely, and Michael Hamilton is farming Alluvian Constellus triggers. And It's going so well for him. I know it doesn't look significant. I know the life totals seem pretty close, but those counters are so important, and we're looking at 2 counters to 0.
Yeah, I think you make a really important point here for people at home. Early in the game right now, they're kind of jockeying for position a little bit, and their life totals aren't necessarily the only thing that matters at seeing who's ahead.
Absolutely. Jockeying for position is a great way to put it because, like I said, it's like an Arsenal sort of economy. If Viet is effectively denied himself an Arsenal, I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Hamilton exploits this to win the entire game off the back of just that. Like locking out an Icelander's Arsenal, Michael Hamilton never has to worry about a spell coming his way on his turn, right? He can play totally for free. I'm so happy you pointed it out because it's really dawning on me how bad that could possibly be for Viet.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised. I actually kind of expected him to at least think about keeping it in his hand because of the agency that gets taken away from him. I love how you put that. And I wonder if Hamilton picked up on that. He's like, look, if I don't have to, I'm not throwing a Raging Bull at you. I'm not going to attack you. So let's see. Also, his deck just might, if he just draws a lot of the arcane damage spells, he doesn't even have to make that choice. Now, the first item for Michael was developed on that turn. He did get an Amulet of Ice, but we're back over to Viet Pham here after he developed an Arsenal. So looks like we've got a Polar Blast here on the stack.
So the way it's going to work for Michael, if Michael doesn't play attack actions, I do think he will need to combo Viet with the Frost Hexes and the Ice Eternals. The reason for that being is Michael's arcane damage cards literally can't push through Arcane Barrier. While he won't have to fear anything that Viet's doing because Viet doesn't have the Arsenal, he just simply can't do 30 damage from pure arcane cards. So we'll need to utilize Frost Hexes and Ice Eternal with those energy potions like we talked about to actually combo Viet out of the game.
Yeah, it looks like this Polar Blast, if Michael doesn't want to pay for this, which it looks like maybe he did, it would give Dominate to the next attack. So then Michael can't, do the normal thing of block with a couple cards from hand, maybe respond to something later. Though it was played not from the Arsenal, so there's not going to be a card draw here as well. Another thing coming into play here with that card being stuck in the Arsenal for Viet Pham. So we're seeing it actually have an impact here. It might not have as big of one as we're saying that it could have later down the line because, like you were saying, Michael's pretty incentivized to attack at some point in time. But
it could be. If I was in Michael's position, I'd probably be looking to just combo Viet out with the Frost Hex. There's just nothing Viet can do against that combo if he just has to sit there through the whole game, right? This Polar Blast, by the way, I know it does say pay 1 or get Dominate. While it does sometimes resolve and give a big attack like Wounded Bowl Dominate, you'll pretty much never see an Iyslander actually pay for that trigger.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll say. That's one of the ones we don't see. The other ones we will, most likely from Aether Ice Vein and stuff like that. So, all right. Oh, this is a big play for Michael Hamilton here.
The reason why this play is so important is Michael Hamilton has attack actions in his hand right now. This play right now and the couple that might come after this are going to tell us exactly what Michael's game plan to win this game is. If we see an attack action come out of Michael, we know he's going to play just a more standard tempo-oriented game to try to win against Viet Pham. But if he opts to actually pitch those 2 attack actions in hand, one of them being Enlightened Strike, we know pretty much for 100% that Michael Hamilton is going to combo Viet out with Frost Hex and Ice Eternal.
If you see those cards get pitched and your Viet Pham on the other side, do you kind of start to realize what's about to happen or what the point of what's going on is?
100%. If I have Sink below my Arsenal and my opponent has 2 Constella's counters and I have 0, I'm starting to kind of realize the way I lose this game, to be honest.
Yep, it does look like we've got an attack here. This is one of the ones we don't always see get put on the combat chain too often.
All right, Tannen, here it is. That is a block with Brothers in Arms and Enlightened Strike. Michael, I am almost 100% sure, is going to combo Viet out. Viet is going to sit on a Sink below an Arsenal potentially for the entire game. This is awesome.
I could not be more enjoying this. This is an awesome game of flesh and blood. We're seeing one player adapt on the fly to a situation that I have actually never seen come up in the mirror.
I talk a lot about how good Michael Hamilton is at Flesh and Blood, and the main reason I do that is because you talk about this macro game plan, right? Are you playing the attack actions? Are you playing tempo? Or are you comboing? Michael has adapted and dynamically changed his game plan to react to Viet showing that Sink Below off the Brain Freeze and knowing with 100% that that's in the arsenal and that if he doesn't play an attack action, it is 100% stuck there. I simply do not think, I actually think it might be impossible for Viet to win the game without access to an arsenal.
Yeah, that's going to be so huge. Another good thing for him here, though, he did just find another Insidious Chill, so if he does find a way to Ice Fuse over the next few turns, this may be something to get him back in the game because this would strip almost all of Michael's hand.
You're right. If there is a path to victory, it is through things like Insidious Chill and Amulet Devices and creating windows, right? Creating windows where you can strip Michael Hamilton's entire hand via those triggers and then deal arcane damage.
All right. Looks like Michael's getting a pitch going here. He's going to play a card from his arsenal. Looks like it's going to be an Ice Bolt.
Yeah, you will also see Michael Hamilton set up the bottom of his deck, by the way. You see him pitch Aether Ice Vein, or the red Aether Ice Vein here, as well as the Fendal's Fighting Spirit. So setting up, I don't know if he cares much about the attack actions, but yeah, this has alluded to us his game plan. But by pitching the red Aether Ice Vein, he's going to try to set up a play to use Storm Stratus potentially on the opponent's turn, rip the hand, and then maybe combo out with something like an Ice Eternal. Once you see the Ice Eternal in Michael's hand, that is a critical card for the combo, and most likely Michael's game plan will be to play an Ice Eternal in his main phase, fuse it, have one in Arsenal, and then play one on Viet's, creating a ton of Frostbites and basically hitting Viet for 20+ damage.
Yeah, we saw him do that kind of play you alluded to earlier. It was like kind of at the end of the turn. He had the extra resource going. He had his third counter as a Louis. Still, his first counter just put on by Viet. Viet is he's collecting all the items here.
Yeah, so the way this combo works, we talked about the Ice Eternal and the Frost Hexes, but you also want to have these Amulet of Ices and Energy Potions developed. The Energy Potion simply allows you to sink more resources into Ice Eternal, but what Amulet of Ice does is it allows you to strip the opponent's entire hand before they can actually try to block Arcane Barrier, and it's critical, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be so important. I mean, I think that's the path to victory that Viet has to have. He's going to be able to strip Michael's hand, either get a big attack into a bunch of arcane damage, or blow him up in one big, turn or something like that. Because, like you see, he is falling behind on that critical point that we talked about. That he's playing without an arsenal, and if you've played Iyslander, that's her ability. So at this point, he pretty much doesn't have a hero.
Really important to note that the third Insidious Chill went out. This is significant, right? If Viet fuses, it's going to take Michael's entire hand. I'm actually not sure that I'm a fan of developing the third Insidious Chill here, because the two Insidious Chills sort of do the job on their own. Once you develop the third, that's the last Insidious Chill in the deck, and Michael will know once these three counters go away, which they are not optional if Viet fuses, that he doesn't have to worry about those triggers ever again.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to have an Emeritus Scolding out of Michael's arsenal here during Viet's turn, and that's going to be 4 damage, and Viet's going to have to take this.
Yeah, because Viet overextended and played that Insidious Chill and has no cards in hand to deal with this, Michael's going to get free 7 damage. Like, by the way, this is the biggest blue burn spell. Michael has that in Arsenal. Waning Moons after. This is disastrous for Viet Pham.
Yeah, another bunch of damage, unblockable because of the fact that Viet doesn't have any cards in his hand. And you're talking about maybe the overextension just a little bit. I love that point that you just made. Maybe that third Insidious Chill could have stayed in the hand as another blue and stopped some of this damage, but instead, Viet Pham's at 23, Michael's at 34. There is an advantage on Viet Pham's side of the board with all the items that he has, but we don't know if he's going to be able to cash that in.
So, Viet Pham had to play it out that way because he's playing cards like Red Sink Blow in the mirror and has to use that card to pitch, which is just not very good, right? That is a card you want to be using to block. I'm not even talking about the one he has in Arsenal. He had a redundant additional copy of Sink Blow in hand, has to use that to pitch, and thus has no resources to block any of Michael Hamilton's damage.
Exactly. This is looking dire at times for Viet. I mean, how many turns now have we gone through? Like 6, I think, with the Sink Below in the Arsenal, something like that. It's feeling very, very dubious at this point.
Probably around there. You might see Viet get tempo for probably 3 turns max, right? If he rolls on Insidious Chills back-to-back, is able to get Aether Ice Vein after Aether Ice Vein, yeah, he might deal some damage to Michael Hamilton. But outside of that, I don't think that he'll do any damage to Michael Hamilton because he doesn't have that arsenal, and his only way to play on Hamilton's turn is with Storm Striders, which is a single activation.
Yeah, I mean, he's only going to get to play on, like you said, Michael Hamilton's turn 1 time possibly this game. I'm just still floored by this situation even coming up. I've just never seen this. And now we've got an attack coming out from Viet Pham here.
That's why Michael's in the conversation. He recognized that immediately. It was a play that was made in the first 2 turns of the game. Michael recognizes it and changes the entire game plan and exploits that one mistake. A single mistake might cost Viet the game here.
We're going to have to see. This is a really big stage for the happen now. We still got this big Enlightened Strike happening over here. There is a Channel Lake for it that's been developed as well. I mean, this is looking kind of like a UPF game almost or something like that. There's so many items. There's so many things on the board. Keeping up with this might be the hardest part of our job here today.
Yeah, so that Channel Lake Frigid is going to kind of slow Michael down, just makes it inefficient to play on Viet's turn. But, I mean, Michael's going to just do what he's been doing so far and probably fully block out this Enlightened Strike, maybe apply a little bit of pressure on Viet's turn. But these Iyslander decks, when the Channel Lake Frigid is developed, really have no problem with being when Viet is going to attack with like a arcane damage on his turn, Michael will keep one card in hand. He'll just pass. He'll say, no problem.
Yeah.
Swing it at me. I'll
Sure.
stack my Illuvian counter. Do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm taking a look at the list here just for a single card that I was thinking was going to come up. Looks like Michael does not have Scour, and there's one copy over at Viet Phim's list.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't see the Scour really pulling it out for Viet here, but it is something to note because there is a few cards different at that, right? They are pretty much pure mirror decks, but Michael Hamilton has adjusted from Viet's version of the deck. Like I said, that deck that Viet Pham is playing, I'm pretty sure is card for card exactly what Michael played to win the U.S. National Champions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. He was saying something about that in his interview earlier. Now, this looks like a blue frosting is going to be on the stack with the frostbite on the stack. It looks like Viet Pham is going to activate his Costellos. Looks like that is going to resolve. Here comes the frostbite. A lot of creative accounting going on here, as Flake would put it.
Yeah, this is pretty cool because you're seeing Michael exploit Viet's lack of card economy again. Viet having only one resource floating, no cards in hand, has overextended debatably once again, and now Michael's going to throw 4 arcane damage at him, at which he can only block one of it. That's a significant portion of Viet's life when you're talking about something that has razor-thin margins like the Iyslander Mirror. Important to note how Illuvian Constellus works here. It does reduce Waning Moon's cost by 3, therefore negating the frostbite.
So it does look like we're going to have a little bit of arcane damage thrown back and forth between the players, each one of them preventing a little bit. So Costello's counters coming off of both Illuvians, counters going back on both Illuvians, but then here comes the Waning Moon from Michael, and there's no floating resources for Viet here.
And yeah, kind of important to note what Michael did there because it's a little bit technical, but once you understand it makes sense. So he responded by removing a counter from Illuvian, which is an instant. And then after taking that counter off, now goes to the part where he blocks the arcane damage that Viet has come in with, thus taking up an additional counter. So just getting out that value and getting those counters wherever he can.
Yeah, the Illuvian really helping out with Channel Lake Frigid that's on the other side of the board. Still there as well. There are so many auras and items in play right now. I don't know if this might be a record for one of our coverages right now.
It looks like a lot, but it's simpler than it appears in terms of like a board state, right? Basically,
maybe for you.
No, basically you have these redundant points of Insidious Chill, which it means that Viet plays something that fuses like a Red Aether Ice Vein or like a Brain Freeze or Ice Eternal. He's going to strip Michael's entire hand, and those are the windows in which Viet needs to win this game. Outside of that, Michael is pretty much going to turtle up, tax Viet's hand like he has been, deal that arcane damage here and there, and try to develop a couple more Frost Hexes, and then hit him with something like an Ice Eternal.
Yep. So you're going to get hit. Here comes a Lightning Strike for 5. I got to believe this one's got to go again. Saw the card go to the bottom, but I don't think I saw a draw off of it.
My favorite part about this game, Tannen, is that I've talked with Michael Hamilton a lot about this Iyslander list, adding the attack actions, and in particular, adding Wounded Bull. And his theory is that it's okay that Wounded Bull blocks for 2, because if you ever block with it, you're losing the game. But no, Michael. If your opponent arsenals a sink blow, you are more than happy to block with your Wounded Bull. There is definitely devil in the details there. But, yeah, it's funny to see Michael Hamilton, the man himself, who has said publicly that he never blocks with this card, now using it as a way to exploit his opponent's mistake with the sink blow and potentially win this game.
And this is a potential for Viet to get back in the game a little bit. That's an attack for 5, followed up by an attack for 6 and gaining of a life here. This is a big attack for Viet. This is an 11 in attack this turn. He looks like we're ready to get 3 cards out of Michael's hands for blocking. Viet up to 21, Michael down to 28 here.
So that's one of the best plays you can make in the Iyslander Mirror if you're Viet. But the reason why that's so good is he's taking all the cards out of Michael's hand. We said this many times, Tannen. You do that, you take cards out of the hand with the attack action, and then you hit them with the spell on their turn because they literally don't have the card economy to block it. But in Viet's case, he can do a high-value play like E-Strike Go Again and Fandal's Fighting Spirit, but doesn't have the arcane spell in Arsenal to actually capitalize off that. So no matter how big the attack is, Michael doesn't care. Simply can't get punished here.
Yeah, it looks like I develop another Amulet of Ice here for Michael.
Yep, we're just driving to that combo.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be like, yeah, I'm good to pass. I'm going to leave this card my arsenal, draw up my 4 cards here. See an Energy Potion in his hand as well. Get that E-Pot maybe developed a little bit later if he doesn't need it here.
Michael has a very clear path to win. And here's the card from Viet that we've talked about. This is Red Aether Ice Vein. We're going to see 3 Insidious Chill triggers on the stack, which is asking Michael to either discard a card or pay 2. So effectively, discard 3 cards or pay 6, which is a lot to pay. Amulet of Ice also developed. Michael facing his first real question of this game.
Yeah, you pointed this out. This is going to be the big turn, the big test. So for everybody at home, this Aether Ice Vein is Ice Fuse, so this is going to be dealing 5 arcane damage over to Michael. That's maybe not even the most important part of this card right now. There's 3 Insidious Chill triggers on the stack, forcing Michael to either pay 2 or discard a card.
So I'm going to tell you that Michael has done the math here, and I can help. We can do it right now if you want to see. So every time this is the worst thing that Viet Pham can throw at Michael is a red Aether Ice Vein. So let's assume we have 3 blues in hand, not even 4 blues. We're going to pitch 2 blues to pay for all those Insidious Chill triggers. Then we're going to be faced with an Aether Ice Vein for 5. We may have 1 more blue in hand. Say we block 3. The only thing that Viet can do after that is follow up with Waning Moon for 2. That is not very much. I'm talking, that's 4 damage coming out. So Michael's done the math and is probably saying the max I'm taking from Viet's most high value plays is something like 12 damage. And when you're sitting at 28, you know that you're not going to die. Really kind of feels like Viet Pham has run himself into a very hard situation here. Also has developed all 3 Insidious Chills. So like we talked about, once those are gone, Michael doesn't have to worry about anything.
He just got carte blanche to do whatever he wants in this game.
Absolutely right. Yeah. That is an impactful card in the mirror and can be annoying. But when you know all of them are gone, you know that you can pretty much make every play without being punished. And you're right. We do see the Amulet of Ice sort of activated there to strip an additional card out of Michael. But I think that's a play in desperation, Tannen, because it's not going to do much. And even if Michael blocked 0 damage from every red Aether Ice Vein plus Waning Moon, that would only be 21 damage and wouldn't even kill him.
Yeah, and so he's going to go ahead. That last card's going to go into the pitch zone. Some counters going to go on the Luvian Costellos to stop some of that arcane damage. Michael down to 25, but I think he feels like that turns a win because he didn't take too much damage. We got counters off of all of the Insidious Chills. We got rid of an amulet here. Like, look how much cleaner this board is than it was 2 turns ago. Michael definitely in the driver's seat here. Viet Pham, you know, like you said, maybe a little bit of desperation last turn of the Amulet of Ice, but honestly, like, what else can he do?
What else are you going to do with it, right? You really can't do anything else with it, unfortunately. Yeah,
he's got to try to make tempo, right? He's got to try.
Yeah. Right. And here we go. Here's Michael Hamilton said to you in the interview, the attack actions are broken in Iyslander. They are the most important thing in the mirror. But, again, it's because you can capitalize with the arcane damage on your opposing turn. Michael Hamlin's going to be more than happy to fully block out these and just simply go to his turn and pass, right? Viet Pham only has so many attack actions in the deck. It's quite easy for Michael Hamilton to block them out, run him out of threats, and Viet Pham simply cannot play his arcane spells outside of Stormstriders, which is amazing for Michael.
Yeah, this almost feels like one of those weird games where, you know, you're an Oldhim and you realize, you know what, I've just got to fatigue my opponent from here. And it's kind of like what Michael's almost doing here. Yeah, he's doing some arcane damage here, but denying this arsenal from Viet this long in the game, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this at this level, and this is just fun to watch. This is amazing.
Yeah, you've probably noticed that Michael Hamilton is not playing the sync blows. We talked about that. As soon as I saw the first sync blow for Viet, I did question the preparation in this mirror because that is what can happen with that card. It absolutely can't be arsenaled by any means because your opponent will immediately punish you for doing something like that. While blocking 0 for 4 on a big attack action is nice when it happens, I do think it's too disruptive to your own game plan to include, and we're seeing that play out right now.
So it looks like we got another Aether Ice Vein here that's going to be revealing a Frosting.
It's a blue, too.
Yeah, okay, so this is a blue Aether Ice Vein. It's going to be revealing a Frosting, and this has got 3 triggers of Insidious Shield going. One of them finally gone, so we've only got 2 counters left on this.
Michael discarding Wounded Bull and Enlightened Strike, just showing you that those, what would be the highest value cards in his deck, the attack actions, from his mouth, the most overpowered thing in this matchup, he's more than happy to discard 2 Insidious Chill triggers because they're absolutely worthless when you know by not playing them, you lock your opponent out with a Sync Blow and Arsenal. Just an absolute masterclass from Michael Hamilton here.
Yeah, another blue to the pitch zone here, going to be preventing some of this damage from Aether Ice Vein. Maybe get some more Luvian Costellos triggers going here. We'll have to see. This looks like a Waning Moon activation for Viet Pham. The life totals are still pretty close here, so maybe Viet can find a way out of this if he gets a few more of those attack actions and gets the right cards out of Michael Hamilton's hand at the right time. But this is an uphill battle for him from this point. Michael at 24, Viet at 22.
So Viet Pham also just cannot combo Michael because he doesn't have access to that arsenal. has Storm Strider, so can do a significant amount of damage if he's able to open a window on Michael's turn. But outside of that, the sort of Frost Hex, Ice Eternal combo is not even available to him at this point.
Yeah, I think I see an Ice Eternal in Michael Hamilton's hand. Maybe a little early to start firing that off just yet, but we'll see.
And Viet Pham pitching his own Ice Eternal there.
Yeah, something to note as well. Each of these players have one Frost Hex on them from the other. We've got an attack from Fendel's Fighting Spirit here on the stack. Life gained, getting Viet up to 23. Looks like a double block here, and then a pump of the Brothers in Arms. So that's going to be able to soak up the damage here from Michael. Just fully committing to this plan that we've seen since, what, turn 1, turn 2 of this game.
Yeah, such a technical matchup. You see him pitch the yellow Aether Ice Vein because it's pretty much absolutely worthless to Michael because the opposing Iyslander player has Arcane Barrier 4.
Absolutely looks like another Polar Blast. Again, not from Arsenal because we don't have access to that anymore in this game. So this is just Polar Blast. Hey, do you want to give me a card for this? Do you want to give me a resource? You know, you've got some extra ones. It looks like Michael's like, yeah, I've got extra ones floating around this turn. I can actually pay for this one.
And I know Viet Pham, by making it to this point in the tournament, by being the #1 seed at the World Championships here, has probably started to realize just quantitatively there might not be enough damage in his deck to deal 24 to Michael. And he's watching Michael set up his pitch deck, set up this combo, and is just wondering, what the heck do I do about this? Probably wishing he was playing, I don't know, something that could clear that Arsenal.
Yeah, and as you make this statement, there's an attack for 8 here. It's going to be fully blocked out by Michael, and I think that point you just made is so poignant and so important that, you know, the way Michael's playing this game of blocking and making sure he keeps enough blues in his hand to activate Alluvian Celos to Arcane Barrier enough is, since there's no Arsenal for Viet anymore in this game, since that card is stranded there, he might not actually have the damage output left in his deck to be able to kill Michael before Michael eventually finds the kill himself.
Well, Tandon, I'll tell you, Michael's game plan is not a secret. It is completely face up. He would probably be happy to verbalize it to Viet Pham at this point.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, simply setting up items, pitch stacking his combo, and like you see a Frost Hex in Michael's hand, likely will develop that as soon as possible. It is absolutely clear what Michael believes his game plan is to win this game, and boom, we see the Frost Hex develop for Michael Hamilton. 2 Frost Hex on either side. But we know, because Michael Hamilton does have access to the Arsenal, is much better equipped to actually utilize that card.
Yeah, so we've talked about this as a mirror match almost down to the card, and look at the board. It's a mirror match of Frost Hexes as well, 2 on each side of the board. Another Amulet of Ice developed for Viet here. So he does have at least one more turn where he could strip the entire hand possibly from Michael with those 2 Insidious Chills left over. But this is another attack for 8. Wounded Bull, a 3 for 7 unless you've got less life, and checking it, Viet's at 23. Michael at 24. This one's going to be coming in for 8. You can see that both players kind of, I love what Michael's doing here. He's looking at the physical attacks that are left. He's like, how many more reds do you have left in your deck?
Absolutely,
and it's really low.
Absolutely, Tan. And he knows exactly how many attack actions are in this deck. And he knows that once he runs Viet out of that, Viet really can't do any damage to Michael Hamilton because Michael Hamilton will have access to Arcane Barrier 4 in Viet's main phase. And even if Viet strips cards after that, cannot punish Michael by playing that attack out of Arsenal. And you see him doing, just like you said, looking through the graveyard, seeing how many Wounded Bulls are left, how many Fendel's Fighting Spirits, because once those cards are gone, Michael literally doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. All he's worried about right now is this attack for 8. He's going to look to see exactly how he wants to block this. Got a bunch of cards in hand. He has a final Fighting Spirit of his own, and he's a little incentivized to block with these with the way that he's playing the game out, but he's not going to gain the life off of it here.
Absolutely. He's good. He is more than happy to block with these cards. They are effectively red cards that have no attack and no text on them. There is no way Michael Hamilton will ever play an attack this game unless he is 100% sure that when he plays that is going to be the last thing that happens in the game. He has locked Viet out of that arsenal. You talked about this being a card-for-card mirror match. I'll tell you what's not a mirror match. One Iyslander player having access to an arsenal and the other not. This is incredible for Michael Hamilton.
Yeah, it just seems absolutely unfair the way this game is played out.
Viet sort of showed that for himself, not only siding in the sync blows in the Iyslander mirror, but quickly arsenaling it after Michael Hamilton had seen it with Brain Freeze, right? So Michael Hamilton had information while we were looking at the Brain Freeze, like, oh, it missed. That's unfortunate. Michael Hamilton got the critical information when Viet arsenaled that card on what it was and immediately adjusted the game plan to not play attack actions.
And not to take anything away from Viet here, we've got the third Frost Hex coming out for him. So Michael now has 3 of them on it. Is this something that you're a little worried about if you're in Michael's seat?
Absolutely not, because there's no arsenal. So you have to think about the Storm Striders, right? Technically, Viet Pham could play something like an Ice Eternal in his main phase, fuse it, double Insidious Chill Trigger, pop the Amulet of Ice, then we go to Michael Hamilton's turn, has taken cards out of Michael Hamilton's hand, and then we'll play that Ice Eternal via the Storm Striders, popping the Energy Potion as well. I simply do not think it will be enough damage.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've got to agree with you here. It's something that, like, whenever you look at a board, you see someone's got 3 Frost Hexes, that's a moment you're like, oh no, like that could be bad, but definitely not as bad as it could have been. Now, this is a blue Ice Bolt from Arsenal for Michael Hamilton here. 2 cards left over in Viet Pham's hand here, so he might be able to fight a little bit. We'll have to see.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, it depends on how many cards Viet Pham has in hand, but Michael Hamilton is doing one of 2 things by playing that Ice Bolt. Either thinks that he can deal damage to Viet Pham because Viet Pham does not have the cards in hand to block that, or is simply trying to clear his arsenal so he can set up the combo, and I think it's going to be the latter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on here. You see him kind of shrug, and we've got one of the last physical attacks left over for Viet Pham here. This isn't a light strike, and I was going to say, well, let's see how much this one's coming in for. It's coming in for 5. He's going to give it go again. So maybe he's got a second one behind here. Let's see. We've got the double block here from Michael. It's going to soak up all the damage.
Yep. Certainly will. Okay, so it is going to be the Energy Potion, which is a high-value play, right? That would be devastating normally in a mirror. I really love this match, Shannon, because this shows true flesh and blood, right? It is a game where you can come into a match with a game plan, but depending on what your opponents do, you can adjust, punish them, and completely switch that up. I don't think Michael Hamilton has ever played an Iyslander mirror where he has locked an opposing Iyslander off of their arsenal with something like a Sync Blow, but has drawn that up from the second turn of the game and played towards that game plan, and we're seeing it executed flawlessly.
Absolutely. I feel like we're going to be talking about this game for years to come.
This is a great masterclass on not only Iyslander, but on high-level Flesh and Blood. You see, like that, if you were going to look at the sideboard notes and the game plan notes for Iyslander, this would absolutely not be on that piece of paper.
Yeah,
but
who's ever had this situation come up? Yeah,
Michael has adapted to his opponent's mistake in the first 5 minutes of this game.
Showing you why a lot of people consider him to be one of, if not the best player in the world. Not to take anything away from Viet. He's played amazing this entire tournament. The #1 seed coming here into this top 8. Just very unfortunate the way this game has worked out for him. And we're now officially into the second cycle.
Because you see the Heart of Fandel. You're absolutely correct, and we can expect that combo to come pretty soon.
Yeah, so the writing may be on the wall here. I'm about to say, I didn't get the exact count, but I don't think there's many of these left.
That is the last one, yes.
Yeah, here's a Wounded Bull, and this one's only coming in for 7 because the life totals are tied here at 24. Let's see how Michael wants to do this.
If there's one thing I know about Michael Hamilton, too, is that he has his pitch stack 100% memorized and probably has his opponents as well. But we can expect Michael Hamilton to know exactly card for card what cards are coming off the top of his deck. It is 100% perfect information at this point. The question just comes, does the player have the skill set in order to memorize that? Michael Hamilton absolutely does.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's one of the things I just can't bring myself to do in the game is memorize my opponent's pitch stack. I can usually keep track of my own a decent bit. Like, I remember I was testing with Tarek Patel once in a match, and I made a play, like, late into a game. He goes, no, don't do that. Do this next turn because you're going to draw this, this, and this. I was like, what? You know my pitch stack? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, he just said it so nonchalantly. And then at this level, all of these players are doing that.
Absolutely. It is a tool to be used at the highest levels, and these players have pretty much mastered it. And it is a small edge most of the time, especially if you're playing a faster deck. But an edge nonetheless. It gives you 100% perfect information on what cards are coming off the top of your opponent's deck, and I can't imagine anything better than that.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with Michael Hamilton here, thumbing through this graveyard. I don't think there's many red attacks left, if any. I think we've gotten through almost all of them from Viet Pham.
So Viet Pham also likely hitting his second cycle at a similar time, unless the reason why Michael is able to hit second cycle faster is because he has an arsenal, right? So he's arsenaling that card, drawing the 4 cards every time. Viet Pham has been stuck with some redundant cards in hands occasionally, therefore is drawing through his deck slower than Michael. Nevertheless, I don't think that Viet's second cycle of his pitch stack is going to take him out of this scenario.
Yeah, kind of a writing on the wall, daunting situation from Viet here. We'll have to see if there's any way that he can find his way out of this. I think what Michael's doing here is he's doing the math, right? He's making sure he's like, all right, this is what's left in your deck. This is what's left in mine. He could almost maybe construct Viet Pham's hand from what he's seen and what is missing from the graveyard here. I wonder if he's going that deep into it, because I think he's trying to figure out, how am I blocking this turn, and then how am I using this Ice Eternal out of my hand? Because one of the cards in his hand does not block this turn as well, so that's kind of important. And so he's just trying to figure out the exact way he wants to navigate from here. He's going to go ahead and count his deck. I think this is the turn for him that he's going to fully, this is it. This is where he's making his decision. This is where the game turns for him.
Absolutely. Michael counting his deck like that tells me he knows exactly card for card what order they're in. Just a little bit of a sequence count. It is absolutely something that you should utilize in Flesh and Blood. You can physically count your deck with your hands. It makes it much easier to memorize or try to reconstruct by memory what cards are in that deck by physically feeling them like that. I am surprised sometimes at the highest level we don't see more players using that trick.
Well, if we go back to the day where Chain was legal in CC, you were very famous for it. A lot of the players that tested with you were very famous for it, of just counting the deck over and over again, seeing when you're going to hit your second cycle with those, because you do it so fast.
So we were sequence counting because of the shackle, so you actually wouldn't count the literal amount of cards. You would count like a 1, 2, 3, 4 your hand, then you would count the shackle count and then increase it by n+1 every single time. And
I would watch him like pull the 3 and then pull the 4 and then pull the 3.
It definitely looked bizarre on camera.
Yeah. It's like, it just looked like he had a weird tick on the way that you would count your cards. So I'm like, no, he's counting the shackle, the hand, the shackle.
It's like, this guy has counted 22 cards 5 times in a row. What does he not understand about 22?
Yeah.
All right, back to the game here. We see Viet Pham run out of frosting and simply passing. Viet Pham being left with those redundant cards in hands like I talked about, simply cannot attack, cannot even utilize the cards in hand. We see Emeritus Scolding, the biggest attack like I talked about, guaranteed to probably strip some card out of Viet Pham's hand. Michael Hamilton pitching the red Fandol's Fighting Spirit as well. Those cards, it's just so funny to see them blocked with and pitched.
Not to mention, you did get to pitch the heart there as well, so a little bit of extra value here for Michael. He's going to go ahead and gain that life that he hasn't been able to gain off those Fandol's Fighting Spirits this game. And he's going to clear out some stuff here. He's going to get the Emeritus Scolding. It's spring cleaning time. Let's get this out of the way. Let's put these back in the bottom of the deck. Let's get this arsenal set up, which I wonder if that's that Ice Eternal that we've been seeing hanging out in his hand, and if we're going to see that move real soon to try to end this game.
I think so, Tannen. I think that's why he played out the Emeritus Scolding, which did 0 damage. I would be, speaking of value and speaking of numbers, I would be interested to see someone sort of quantitatively determine how much value Viet Pham has lost by playing without an arsenal for this entire match.
So I don't know what the actual number is going to be, but it's going to be huge.
Yes.
I don't know how to look. I'm not a math scientist, okay? But they pay me to talk, and all I can think of is huge.
It's probably 100 and a lot or something close to that.
100 and a lot. Is that a real number?
Close enough, but we see Channel Like Frigid develops for Viet Pham here. Flow counter on it. Michael Hamilton just really running through the motions of this combo at this point. Likely will play that Ice Eternal, activate all 3 instances of the Amulet of Ice, strip every single card out of Viet Pham's deck, then play another Ice Eternal, thus giving Viet Pham more Frostbites, and then having all of those Frost Hexes trigger and kill Viet Pham easily from 24 health.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have an energy potion get activated here. Michael's like, that's okay. But you need to be able to pass priority every time something happens here.
That's honestly incredible that Viet Pham would activate the energy potions like that unless he has a very big play, because those energy potions are actually critical in blocking some of the arcane damage that might come during the combo. Nevertheless, if Viet Pham has done the math, probably knows those energy potions will not actually save him, even if they do block a lot of damage. Nevertheless, I'm very surprised to see double energy popped during Viet Pham's main phase here.
Yeah, see what he wants to use these resources for. 4 resources, 4 cards in hand, and a card in arsenal. And if Michael wants to do anything during Viet Pham's turn here, don't forget there is that Channel Like Frigid in play that's been developed as well. So Michael's going to have to pay a little extra for some of this stuff.
Yeah, so what Viet Pham is doing here is likely going to play his own Ice Eternal. There it is. It's going to get fused as well. We're going to use the additional 4 resources from the energy potion to give Michael a bunch of Frostbites. The thing is that Michael has access to Illuvian Constella, so can break those Frostbites by pitching the cards in hand, activating Illuvian, and completely shutting down this entire play.
Yeah, we got 2 Insidious Chill triggers as well in the stack. Now they're gone. Insidious Chill, none left for Viet here in these games. Looks like we're going to pitch for resources. Got 2 left over. Let's take care of the Insidious Chills. Now we've got the Ice Eternal.
I mean, this Ice Eternal is representing a lot of damage. It's 5 to the face, also giving 5 Frostbites, which would be devastating. But Michael has game in order to break those Frostbites. And if he does, then those Frost Hexes will not trigger for Michael Hamilton, and he will not need to take that damage. We do see Amulet of Ice pop for Viet Pham, trying to take additional resources away from Michael in order to deal damage through this sort of mini Ice Eternal combo. The Channel Lake Frigid is relatively significant in terms it's going to put Michael down at least one resource, because he will need to pay to activate something like Illuvian Constellus or an Energy Potion.
Yeah, Viet Pham, he's got that. He's got him at the ready. He's ready to hand him over to Michael Hamilton and be like, hey, you get this, you get it. Here, look, I'm giving it to you. It's a present. You get this many. You might not like this present, though, if you're Michael Hamilton. That's 5 Frostbites coming over here. There are 3 Frost Hexes on board. Let's see how he wants to do this. All right, Waning Moon activation here. Possibly get some damage. This is Viet Pham's. This is his chance to win the game. This is where he has to make his move, because he's kind of just regulated to having to do this.
So if Viet Pham doesn't win the game here, it's pretty rough. I can only imagine that Viet Pham is hoping to draw another sort of Ice Eternal or maybe Red Aether Ice Vein on that next 4 cards that he's drawn. So we see Michael Hamilton activate the Energy Potion and thus will likely break every single one of the Frostbites and completely shut down this entire combo. Boom, you will take no damage from Frost Hex. And that's what we were talking about. Michael Hamilton with access to 2 cards in hand plus an Energy Potion. There was simply no way Viet Pham was going to catch him off guard or deal damage.
And yeah, he's had this in his mind since
100%.
Way earlier in the game, right? He's been setting this up with that Energy Potion and leaving it for exactly this kind of thing.
Michael Hamilton understands that there is simply no way quantitatively in which Viet Pham can beat him, and on top of that, has the items developed, probably has Viet Pham entire hand memorized off the top here at this point, because we have hit second cycle. It's a very good spot to be in if you're Michael Hamilton. You're squeaking it at the AC, the person on the bubble that gets your chance to win the first Flesh and Blood World Championship, and you're going to come out of the gate with an absolute masterclass in dismantling in probably the most technical matchup in Flesh and Blood right now, which is the Iyslander Mirror.
Yeah, we were joking about this yesterday. You know, we thought for a little while Michael might not make that top 8, but he squeaked in as the last person in, and we wondered if some of these competitors were like, could we have maybe gotten somebody else in as the 8th seed here?
That's what I would have said too. I would have felt pretty unlucky to be Viet, but we are going to see a blue brain freeze come out of Viet, which I'll tell you right now, Tannen, is simply not going to do it. That is not impactful enough, and we see there is no follow-up after the Ice Eternal combo. Viet Pham is in deep water right now.
Yeah, you can see he's revealing a Cold Snap here as well, and that card's also just going to have lower impact than normal in the game. You know, he can't put it in his arsenal, can't draw the card off of it. You've seen just the actual velocity Michael Hamilton has had this game by going through his deck quicker and getting into that second cycle than Viet Pham. So he's had you talked about as early as turn 2 or 3. He was starting to set up the bottom of his deck. He's going through it. He's about to go through it again as well.
100%. Michael Hamilton knows there is a clear path of victory in this game and is playing towards that specifically. There is pretty much no way Viet Pham can actually disrupt that game plan, especially because Viet Pham popped both those energy potions aggressively. I don't fault Viet for doing that, because Viet simply will not win this game on the defensive end, but by not having access to those energy potions is much more susceptible to the combo that Michael Hamilton will come at him with and can die from a much lower life total.
Yeah, this is a blue Brothers in Arms attacking, something I don't get to say very often in the booth. And it looks like we're going to get a double block from Michael Hamilton here. He was very content last turn to, hey, here's my card. I'll draw back up to 4 from that 3-card hand, something you don't see very often in Flesh and Blood. But like you said, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get there. It just might take a few extra steps to get us there. It might be a little while. We're going to walk it in.
I'm sorry, it's just so funny to see Michael Hamilton play the energy potion and then smile and laugh at his opponent, because he knows his opponent is under no illusion of what is actually happening here.
Yeah, and there's no bad-natured laughing going here. They're talking back and forth. I think Viet is probably realizing, like, oh, this is so bad for me, and they're chatting back and forth. He's probably like, I'm going to try. I'm going to make you earn it. But, the writing's been on the wall for a while here. Viet Pham, very smart, very astute player, has probably realized, just as soon as we did, where the problem was.
Yeah, Viet playing out his last Channel Lake Frigid will likely delay Michael's combo.
It delays the inevitable.
You are not going to combo into a Channel Lake Frigid, but probably one of the last tools available Viet has, and you see Michael counting the deck, figuring out where those Ice Eternals are, and probably where that last Frost Hex is, although I don't think he actually needs it at some point to kill Viet Pham here.
I think he might actually have it in his hand. I'm trying to peek one of them, but all the Iyslander cards, when you just get the corner, they kind of look similar. It's like
he does.
It's like 5 cards. They all kind of look very some of the same.
He does have it in hand.
Okay, it does look like it. There's an Insidious Chill.
So the reason why he was counting his deck so much is you see that Ice Eternal pitch, right? That is likely an Ice Eternal is going to use to win this game. So now it's on the bottom of the deck with a fuse card, with the Aether Hail. We do see Ice Eternal stacked above the Aether Hail. I don't have the exact count on Michael's deck, but next time he fingers through it, I'll try to get
It looked like I think he had 3 draws left. Like he had somewhere around like 10 to 12 cards. So he's going to get to it pretty fast if he can play a few more cards. That's the thing, too. You see him, he's being very careful these last couple turns of how many cards he's playing per turn because he is actually running out of cards. That is something that could possibly come up, but he's got that inevitability, like you said.
He's just trying to draw the exact sequence of cards that he wants. The perfect 4-card hand to close out this game and calm his opponent. He does not want yellows in hand, does not want reds in hand. We've seen Michael pitch a lot of red cards, actually, so he's probably trying to set up a blue hand that doesn't include those red attack actions that he's pitched earlier in the game.
Yeah, and you can see Michael kind of doing this as well. Like I said, he's been keeping the cards in his hand and being very careful about what he's pitching here, but Viet's actually helping him out a little bit. He has to do something. He developed an Amulet of Ice, activates a Waning Moon, and that lets Michael just pitch a card from his hand for resources. So it goes back into his deck, but he gets to get closer to the cards that he wants without losing actual, cards in his deck.
So Tannen, the third Frost Axe has been developed. We know the Ice Eternal is about 3 cards on the bottom of the deck, likely another Ice Eternal in Arsenal. Michael has set up the sort of end game sequence in order to close out this game. We see symmetrical board states with Frost Axes on both sides, but Viet simply isn't able to utilize those because he's denied the Arsenal. And Michael, so I was running through trying to count that, but he did a little fast for me. Nevertheless, I do think it is around 3 draw steps, like you said, and we will see Michael Hamilton close out this game and likely move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, great weekend. I mean, we're trying not to say it's over, but it's looking really bad for Viet to be able to come out of this, but great weekend for him. Something he can really hang his hat on. You made the top 8 of the first ever World Championship.
And you were number 1, right?
You were number 1. You paced the field, yeah.
Yeah, Viet Pham had a fantastic tournament. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this is the Flesh and Blood World Championships. The best players in the world are here. And for you to come in at number 1 in Swiss, no one can deny to put your name up there as one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, and you see Michael being very careful here. He's going to play a Channel Lake Frigid. He's going to pitch a couple extra cards, use this to use Waning Moon, but he's making sure to pitch the right cards in the right order here very, very carefully. Because the deck is so small, he could pretty much set up his hands for the rest of the game.
100%. He also will not be pressured at all. So there's pretty much nothing Viet can do to disrupt that pitch, right? Michael just gets to sit back, play his game plan, develop his Frost Hex, and set up that perfect pitch stack for the combo. This is a great game to start off with Iyslander for this top 8 because you're going to see the combo played out, which is an important game plan in Iyslander's toolbox.
Absolutely. Let's see. I feel like we're getting close to the end here.
I do too. I think we're about 2 draw steps away, but it depends how quickly how good Michael Hamilton's pitch stack is, and we do see the Heart of Fendel again.
We see the Heart of Fendel for about the 4th time this game. We see an Ice Eternal in his hand. There's an Aether Ice Vein that's been sitting out in this arsenal for quite a while. He's got the double pitch here. He's going to be able to gain a life off this pitch as well. Reveals the ice card.
So this is the combo, by the way, Tannen. He's going to play Aether Ice Vein. The Insidious Chill will trigger, likely will pop every amulet, take every single card out of Viet Pham's hand, arsenal the Ice Eternal in hand, or I'm assuming it's an arsenal. I didn't get a peek at it. Go on to Viet's turn. Viet will have no cards in hand. Then he will play something that will give Viet a Frostbite or likely multiple Frostbites. We will go to Viet's end phase. Those 3 Frost Hexes will trigger, and Viet will die from 24 life, or probably a little bit less because he might take at least 1 damage from this Aether Ice Vein.
Yeah, we're going to watch this play out, but this looks like the beginning of the end for the tournament here for Viet Pham. About to blow up from a ton of little specks of ice.
That's how these Iyslander mirrors go. They are so technical, and they're so variable too. Like, you can have people throwing attack actions at each other, playing for Constella's triggers, playing for tempo, and it can feel a bit draw dependent at times, to be honest. But in this case, we are going to see sort of the best way this mirror can end, which is in the form of a combo. You've seen Michael set this up from turn 2. He was playing towards this game plan the entire time, and now you're going to see it executed perfectly. I can only imagine the card the card unrevealed in his hand is an Ice Eternal.
Yep. All right. First Amulet of Ice, paid for. Resource floating. Second Amulet of Ice, paid for. 2 resources floating. Third one. It was so nice. We did it thrice. Looks like that last one's going to get a card out of Viet Pham's hand.
Viet Pham, no cards in hand. Yep. Absolutely surgical play by Michael Hamilton here. Couldn't have drawn it up better. We will go to Viet's turn, and Michael Hamilton will play that card out at Arsenal. Here comes a Waning Moon for your troubles as well for 2 damage.
It's going to be 2 damage. We're going to move to Arsenal. It looks like here that Polar Blast is going to be left over in hand as well. Make sure a blue is there.
Absolutely. He just simply can't use the cards at this point, too. But Michael Hamilton definitely has that pitch stack memorized. And I don't know if he's drawing all blues. He might draw one yellow, but I'll tell you right now, it's going to be enough.
Yeah, it's going to be enough. Luven Castellos was able to make that Waning Moon free for him as well. So it looks like here's the 4 cards. You see him, he's moving a little extra. He's got this extra energy potion sitting around. That's 2 resources. He's moving this fast. Ice Eternal, 4. What's the big number?
So he's going to pitch a yellow here and fuse. So it's going to be for 10, which makes X equals 5 here. 5 going 15, dealing 5 as well. And then, of course, Waning Moon. This is lethal by any means. Viet Pham is simply dead on board here. Michael Hamilton, you couldn't have drawn it up better. What a perfect game.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and go through the motions here, and City Shield does trigger if there's no cards. Metacarpus Nodes is going to be activated, and I don't know if I can count this high for how much damage is going to be put over this turn. That's 5 Frostbites going to the other side of the board. Is this the last turn of the World Championships for Viet Pham?
It's absolutely superfluous at this point because Viet Pham is simply dead from the Frostbites and the Ice Eternal damage, so the Waning Moon doesn't matter, the Metacarpus Node doesn't matter. It is simply 20 damage on board. There's the fist bump, and Michael Hamilton moves forward after being the AC in our tournament. Viet Pham flips his arsenal, but we all knew what it was. It was that critical sink below.
I cannot stress this enough. You said it multiple times. I think that was an absolute master class from Michael Hamilton. Nothing against Viet Pham. He's played amazing all weekend. Very deserving player here in this top 8. And you see what happens in something at Worlds where you make maybe one small mistake.
One mistake.
One little misstep, right? One little tiny thing. The other player is a world-class player, not just Michael Hamilton. Everyone in this top 8 is a world-class player. They are going to punish you for that every time.
100%. Michael drew it up from turn 2, which I love to see. That was a great example of what this Iyslander deck can do. It is sort of a tempo deck. It's playing attack actions. It's developing Insidious Chills. It's dealing Arcane on your turn. But it just inherently has this combo package, which is incredible. So powerful. Killing Viet Pham from Tony Life. Critical misstep in the arsenaling of the sink below. It's a bit too aggressive, especially after it's been revealed by the brain freeze, right? So Michael Hamilton had perfect information that I don't need to play these attack actions, and I can turn you off of your hero's most powerful function.
Yeah, one of the most powerful functions of hero in the game.
Yes, absolutely. Playing at instant speed, cheating on action points, that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately for Viet Pham, his tournament has come to an end, but we have our first semifinalist. It's one of the Americans into the semifinals, Michael Hamilton. To the surprise of maybe a few making it into the top 8, but no surprise here that he's going to be moving on and playing later in our elimination rounds. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Flesh and Blood and more of this top 8.